Persona 5 Royal is one of the greatest games I have played yet. Its vibrant art direction, compelling characters, incredible gameplay loop and mechanics, and amazing story really blew me away the second I touched the game. So after playing through the first dungeon, what are a non-JRPG player's first impression of Persona 5? I went into Persona 5 with high expectations after watching so many people give it such critical praise, and I was not disappointed. Before I give into my thoughts, let's go give a recap of the story up to the end of the first act. I'd just like to say that there's some mild trigger warnings here for mentions of abuse, and minor trigger warnings for mentions of suicide. Spoilers for the start of the game up to the end of first act ahead as well. With that being said, let's get into it. Persona 5 is a JRPG where you try to change the hearts of awful people whose desires have warped their minds and manifested into palaces inside of their brain. You play as Joker, otherwise dubbed by the fans as Ren Amaya. I really don't think I'm pronouncing that right, but it does not matter. Joker is a 15-year-old boy who was arrested and put on probation for defending a woman who was being harassed by a drunken man. However, during this, the man had gotten hurt and lied to the police that you were the one to hurt him. Therefore, the law considered it assault and put you on probation. You are moved to Tokyo, in the attic of a cafe owned by a man named Sojiro Sakura. He acts as your caretaker throughout the game and slowly opens up to you, progressively giving you more freedom to roam around Tokyo as you please, give you tips, help you up stats, etc., etc. The game opens up with you robbing a casino. However, towards the end of it, you are caught and interrogated. This leads to kind of a weird flashback sequence of sorts which retell the story of the character. It's kind of hard to explain, but essentially, this is the current, and you play the rest of the game up to where I am in the past. So let's put a pin in this for now and talk about where the majority of what you're playing is set. On your first day of living in Tokyo, you notice a strange app on your phone. This app acts as a teleporter to the other world. As you go to sleep, you dream of a weird room prison named the Velvet Room. You meet Igor and his two servants, who I forgot the name of, but they aren't really important at the moment. Igor warns you that you must complete a rehabilitation process in order to avoid certain ruin. Your next day is your first day of school, and you are driven in by Sojiro. You immediately take notice that all the kids have already made you an outcast due to your quote-unquote criminal record that came from you doing nothing. On the following day, you attempt to go to school by yourself. You accidentally stumble into a supernatural reality called the Metaverse, thanks to that app you found. You discover a palace. Palaces are locations that serve as physical manifestations of a person's distorted desires inside of the brain. The palace you discovered was that of your school's physically, sexually, and emotionally abusive volleyball teacher, Suguru Kamoshida. During this, you accidentally managed to bring along school delinquent Ryuji Sakamoto inside with you. The two of you are soon to be captured by the evil palace's shadows and brought down into a prison cell, where you are both planned to be executed. However, right before Ryuji's execution, Joker, awakens to his own persona, gaining the ability to summon powerful monsters and defeat the shadows right before your eyes. You then escape and lock Kamoshida in a cell for the time being. During your escape, you find a weird cat-like creature in a cell. You decide to let it out as it seems less hostile. This creature is Morgana. Morgana claims to be a human that got trapped in this form and they don't know how to leave. Morgana explains this world to you and attempts to guide you out. After seeing the volleyball team be relentlessly tortured in Kamoshida's palace, which all of the things that happen in there are reflections of his view on the world, you and Ryuji realize that this must be happening in the real world. Having no other options aside from being ignorant to the situation, you decide to help Morgana in fixing Kamoshida from the inside out. Over several days, you continue to mess with his mind, defeating shadows, solving environmental puzzles, and essentially running around to find his treasure. The treasure is essentially the palace's core, the thing that distorts their desires and makes them feel the way they do. Eventually, Ryuji gains a persona of his own called Captain Kid. One day, a student and victim of Kamoshida, Anne Takamaki, I also think I'm pronouncing that wrong, this game has weird names, stumbles into the metaverse. She follows you around for a little bit, being stubborn to help stop Kamoshida, and eventually gains a persona too. She decides to join your party, and with that, the four of you are off. This game balances a day and night cycle, with you living normally in the day and infiltrating the palace at night. However, one day when confronting Kamoshida in the real world, in his office, he decides to expel you, just because he can. You now have 20 days to fix Kamoshida, so you have to balance your time between the real world and the metaverse well. Also, Morgana managed to escape into the real world now, so he's your campaign throughout everything. That's also important. I forget how it happened. I'm already 3 pages into the script. Forgive me. In the real world, though, things are still grim. Kamoshida convinces Anne's best friend, Shiho Suzui? I also think I'm pronouncing it. Give me a break. Shiho Suzui to commit suicide. This is the true tipping point for our heroes, as they have lost any reason to forgive Kamoshida. In the palace, Morgana explains how to finish this job. You need to steal Kamoshida's treasure. Again, it's like a manifestation of his lust. After securing a safe route to the treasure, you send out a calling card going under the title of the Phantom Thieves. This allows the treasure to physically manifest in the mind so you can steal it. And you only have 1 day to steal the treasure, so keep in mind of that. As you attempt to escape from grabbing the treasure the next day, Shadow Kamoshida spots you. You fight Shadow Kamoshida in his true form. You defeat him, steal his treasure, and make him have a change of heart from the inside out. After being absent for a couple of days, he gives himself up and goes to jail. The crew celebrates and decides to form a complete crew devoted to changing the hearts of evil people. They move on to find the next person that they will change the heart of. They are now officially the Phantom Thieves. The story. This game is beautiful in so many aspects, but the story is one of the ones where it really shines out. The core narrative of this game is not staying oblivious to the world's issues and standing up to make a change, or at least from what I've seen. The dialogue is well written and can change from being funny, sad, evoking, and is overall masterful. The characters are all very relatable and compelling, which makes you constantly want to see more of them and go do the little adventures with them, because you want to see your bonds grow and you want to see them interact further. It almost lets you put yourself in those shoes, imagining yourself in their place. I especially love Ryuji, being this bumbling idiot who's a really good dude at heart, but misunderstood by the masses. I relate. Game. The gameplay is an RPG. In the Night Cycles, you focus on fighting your way through battles, solving puzzles, and whatnot. But the mechanics they implement makes things so much more engaging. For example, being able to ambush enemies before battle for an advantage, having a gun for rapid fire, the negotiation system, etc., etc. One of my favorites is the hold-up system. In battle, after getting all enemies down, you will perform an all-out attack, which essentially lets you do a crap ton of damage to any enemy that you may use it on. These will always be used on bosses, stronger enemies that cannot become your persona, etc. Second option is negotiating with them. You can negotiate with them for them to join you in battle, give you money, or give you an item. Even if you ever run into an enemy, even if you aren't high enough level for them to become your persona, you should normally negotiate with them for more money, which is what I did the entire route, because it guarantees you at least get something out of the battle that you can use in the future. And then third is just returning to battle with no flashy gimmicks. I have never done this because I never cared. To get an enemy as your ally, you need to choose your responses based on what enemy you're facing in the negotiation section. For example, if an enemy is timid, you want to use more serious and comforting words, instead of funny and angry words. If you can see that an enemy is upbeat, you might want to joke around with them a little bit more, make them feel more at home. As for the pacing, you have a good amount of control in this game, seeing you have to pace through the dungeon yourself, making use of your time and supply as well, deciding when to go back and when to go into the palace, which allows you to take things at your own pace. Overall, the RPG battles are fun, the puzzles can be tricky at times, the palaces are diverse and big, and overall, gameplay is Persona 5's strongest suit in my opinion. As for the day cycle, you go to school, walk around, and buy items. You can talk to people and have interactions to strengthen bonds with your friends. This part of the game is more focused on preparing for the night cycle. The stronger bonds you have with your friends, the more likely they'll be able to do follow-up attacks in battle, have more skills that revolve around you. It also gives you better abilities for your personas, and lets you just do a whole ton of stuff in the palace. Art, music, etc. The art in this game is beautiful and makes me want to look at everything forever. Everything from small visuals in battle, loading screens, pause menus, and to the full-on anime opening of both Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal, it's an absolutely stunning to look at. The UI on this game is something that needs to have note taken by other studios. If more games could have more interesting UI, I think that would be so much better. The music is absolutely phenomenal, to the point where I was listening to the soundtrack long before I even knew it was from this game. Of course, Last Surprise, Beneath the Mask, Colors Flying High, etc., etc. are all songs that I listened to beforehand, but songs like Tokyo Daylight, King, Queen, and Slaves, Atlus really knows what they're doing with their music, and I think that the next game that they make, they should totally bring Lynn back for more songs. Gripes. So, I do have a couple problems with this game. Nothing game-changing or, deal-breaking, but mainly just two. During the day, you can only experience 2 activities, or 1 if you decide to go to the palace. You can do something after school and something in the evening, which therefore puts a lot of pressure on every decision you make in the real world, because there's certain amounts of dialogue that you won't see, certain scenarios you won't experience, and just certain people that you won't get to talk to for God know how long if you decline their requests. It puts a lot of unnecessary stress and anxiety on what you want to do, when really you should only be presented with a strict 2 options every day. I also don't like that jumping, crouching, sliding aren't really mapped to a button. It just makes exploration so tedious, because if you're running, you'll just hit an invisible wall, and then you gotta press a button to jump, and you gotta press a button to crouch, or you have to press a button from a pop-up to crouch. It's not like you can just press a button and, oh, hey, look, I'm jumping. No, you gotta let the pop-up show up first, which pisses me off beyond belief. Oh my god. Atlus. Persona 6. Fix this. Closing thoughts. Persona 5 is a absolutely masterfully crafted game with little to no flaws, and I was absolutely blown away and hooked within minutes of opening the game. Atlus was obviously thinking of the player's enjoyment and not just pumping out a game when creating this. They put a lot of time and effort into making this an S-tier experience. It can be difficult at times, but this game always makes it feel like anything that you want to accomplish can be done. Overall, Persona 5 is a must-play for any gamer out there. It left a huge first impression. As it stands, Persona 5's opening act is one of the best experiences I've had on the Nintendo Switch so far, and I have very high hopes for the rest of this game.